An X-ray screen shows something impossible. Inside a shipping container are thousands of iPhones. Perfect iPhones. Brand new iPhones. Sealed boxes with the Apple logo. Authentic looking. Professional packaging. But when Apple receives the image, their response is immediate and shocking. These phones don't exist, Apple says. We never manufactured these units. These serial numbers are fake. This entire shipment is counterfeit. Suddenly, what looked like a legitimate technology shipment becomes a multi-billion-dollar counterfeit fraud operation. Customs officials realize they've uncovered one of the largest smartphone counterfeiting rings in history, an operation worth over $200 million. This is the moment that changed everything. Before we continue with this incredible story, I need your support. Please hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel. We're bringing you real customs mysteries every single day. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's continue. Miami International Airport. Thursday morning, 6:30 a.m. The airport is just waking up. Early morning flights, early morning cargo inspections, early morning shifts for customs officers. It's before most of America is even awake, but the port never sleeps. The port is always working. Officer David Chen has been working customs cargo inspection for 18 years. He's one of the most experienced officers at Miami International. He's seen cargo from every country, he's seen every type of product. But what he's about to discover this Thursday morning will shock even him. A cargo shipment has arrived from Shanghai, China. It's marked as electronic components and consumer technology. The shipping manifest lists it as containing various technology parts and accessories. The declared value is approximately $8 million. But something about this shipment triggers David's attention. The packaging is too perfect. The labels are too clean. The documentation is too organized. In David's experience, legitimate technology shipments are often messier. They're often less organized. This shipment looks almost staged. David calls over his supervisor, Officer Rebecca Thompson. Rebecca has been with Customs for 22 years. She's also a specialist in counterfeiting and intellectual property crimes. Rebecca has worked with Apple before. Rebecca understands how these operations work. David, look at this shipment. Something feels wrong. Rebecca, what specifically?
David,
The presentation. The organization. It's too perfect. Too clean. Like someone spent a lot of time making sure it looked legitimate. Rebecca examines the manifest. She looks at the boxes. She looks at the labeling. She agrees with David. Rebecca, we need to open this. We need to do a complete inspection. They begin carefully opening boxes. Inside the first box are iPhones. They look brand new. They're sealed in Apple packaging. They have all the appropriate markings. They look completely authentic. But Rebecca notices something. The weight is slightly off. The packaging material feels different. The seals are just a millimeter too loose. Rebecca, these look like iPhones. But they're not iPhones. She carefully opens one of the boxes. She removes one of the phones. She turns it on. It powers on. The Apple logo appears. It looks perfect. It functions like an iPhone. But then she checks the serial number. She pulls up Apple's database on her computer. She enters the serial number. The result is immediate and shocking. The database shows this serial number does not exist in Apple's system. Rebecca, this is fake.
David, what do you mean fake?
It looks real. Rebecca, it looks real because it was made to look real. But it's not real. Apple has never manufactured this phone with this serial number. This is a counterfeit. Rebecca immediately calls Apple's anti-counterfeiting department. She sends them images of the shipment. She sends them serial numbers. She sends them the manifest. Apple's response is swift and definitive. These are all counterfeit. We have never manufactured any of these units. This entire shipment is fake. Rebecca and David begin opening more boxes. Box after box. They count. 100 boxes. 200 boxes. 300 boxes. 400 boxes. 500 boxes. By the time they stopped counting, they found approximately 50,000 counterfeit iPhones. 50,000 fake phones, all packaged in Apple boxes, all with fake serial numbers, all designed to fool customers into thinking they're buying authentic Apple products. Rebecca immediately calls the FBI. She calls Apple's security team. She calls Homeland Security. This is no longer just a customs case. This is a massive counterfeiting operation. Within hours, FBI agents arrive. They bring specialists. They bring forensic technology experts. They begin a comprehensive investigation into the shipment. What they discover is shocking. The counterfeit phones are nearly identical to real iPhones. The only way to tell the difference is through Apple's serial number database. The phones have the same processor speed. They have the same camera quality. They have the same screen resolution. They're sophisticated counterfeits.
The estimated value of these counterfeit phones, if they had successfully been sold on the black market, is over $200 million. $200 million in counterfeit technology.
FBI Special Agent Marcus White takes the lead on the investigation. Marcus specializes in intellectual property crimes. Marcus has been tracking counterfeiting operations for 15 years. Marcus, this operation is sophisticated. Whoever is running this knows technology. Whoever is running this knows how to manufacture phones that look authentic. Whoever is running this has access to manufacturing facilities in China. The investigation begins tracing back. Who shipped this? Who ordered this? Who was supposed to receive this? The paperwork shows that the shipment was ordered by a company called Tech World Solutions, a company based in Miami, a company that appears to be a legitimate technology reseller. FBI agents raid Tech World Solutions. They find a small office. They find computers. They find financial records. They find communications with suppliers in China. They discover that Tech World Solutions is a front company, a shell company, a company created specifically to receive and distribute counterfeit technology products. They find the owner's name, Zhang Wei, a man in his early 40s, a former technology engineer from Shanghai who moved to the United States 5 years ago. Zhang Wei is arrested within days. He's taken into custody. He's read his rights. He's detained. The interrogation begins. FBI Special Agent Marcus White sits across from Zhang Wei. Marcus, Mr. Wei, you understand that what you're being accused of is a serious federal crime. You're being accused of importing and distributing counterfeit goods. You're being accused of intellectual property theft. You're being accused of fraud. You could face up to 15 years in prison. Zhang Wei, I want a lawyer. Zhang Wei refuses to cooperate. He invokes his right to remain silent. He sits in the interrogation room with his lawyer and doesn't say a word. But the investigation doesn't need Zhang Wei to talk. The investigation has the phones. The investigation has the computers. The investigation has the financial records. FBI agents begin investigating Zhang Wei's communications. They find emails, they find messages, they find an entire network of people involved in the counterfeiting operation. They discover that Zhang Wei is working with manufacturers in China. They discover that the phones are being manufactured in a facility in Shenzhen, a facility that's supposed to be manufacturing legitimate Apple products. But the facility has gone rogue. The facility is manufacturing counterfeit products on the side. They discover that the operation has been running for 3 years. 3 years of manufacturing counterfeit phones. 3 years of attempting to smuggle them into the United States. 3 years of trying to sell them to unsuspecting customers. They discover that previous shipments have successfully made it through customs. Previous shipments have been sold. Previous shipments have reached consumers. Hundreds of thousands of counterfeit iPhones have been sold to people who thought they were buying authentic Apple products. The investigation becomes international. FBI agents work with Chinese authorities. They coordinate with Interpol. They coordinate with Apple's security team. In China, authorities raid the manufacturing facility. They find thousands of counterfeit phone components. They find assembly lines dedicated to creating fake iPhones. They arrest multiple people involved in the manufacturing process. The operation is being dismantled. One piece at a time, one country at a time, one arrest at a time. Zhang Wei is eventually charged with multiple counts of intellectual property theft. He's charged with importing counterfeit goods. He's charged with conspiracy. He's charged with fraud. He faces up to 20 years in federal prison. His trial begins 6 months later. The evidence is overwhelming. The counterfeit phones, the communications with manufacturers, the financial records showing millions of dollars in illegal transactions. Zhang Wei is convicted on all counts. He receives a sentence of 18 years in federal prison. But the story doesn't end with Zhang Wei's conviction. The investigation reveals something even more disturbing. The counterfeit phones were sophisticated enough that many consumers couldn't tell the difference. Consumers bought these phones, consumers used these phones, consumers believed they were using authentic Apple products. But the phones had vulnerabilities. Security vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities that could allow hackers to access personal information. Vulnerabilities that could allow criminals to steal data. Vulnerabilities that could compromise the privacy and security of consumers. Apple realizes that hundreds of thousands of counterfeit phones are already in consumers' hands. Apple launches a public awareness campaign. Apple warns consumers about the counterfeit phones. Apple provides serial numbers that consumers can check to verify if their phone is authentic. The impact is significant. Consumers begin checking their phones. Many people discover they've been sold counterfeit products. Many people file complaints. Many people file lawsuits against retailers who sold them counterfeit phones. Officer Rebecca Thompson receives a commendation for her work on this case. She's recognized for her instinct, for her attention to detail, for the moment she noticed that something was wrong, for the moment she called Apple. She becomes a spokesperson for customs work. She's interviewed by major news outlets. She talks about the importance of intellectual property protection. She talks about how counterfeit products harm consumers. She talks about how counterfeit products fund criminal organizations. Years pass. Zhang Wei is sitting in a federal prison. He's been in prison for 8 years. 8 years to reflect on his choices. 8 years to understand the damage he was causing. He writes a statement that's read in court during a hearing related to additional charges. I thought I was just making money, Zhang Wei writes. I thought I was just manufacturing phones. I didn't let myself think about the fact that I was defrauding consumers. I didn't let myself think about the fact that I was compromising people's privacy and security. I didn't let myself think about the fact that I was stealing from Apple and from consumers. I was caught at the airport, he continues. I was arrested. I was convicted. And I had time to think about what I had done. I realized that I had hurt people. People who trusted that they were buying authentic products. People who had their privacy compromised because I sold them counterfeit phones. People who had their security violated because I cut corners and used inferior components. I regret my actions, the statement concludes. I regret the damage I caused. I regret that I allowed greed to override my ethics. Officer Rebecca Thompson reads the statement. She thinks about that Thursday morning. She thinks about the moment she noticed something was wrong. She thinks about the moment she opened a box and found counterfeit phones. She thinks about the moment she called Apple. She thinks about how that one moment led to the discovery of a $2,000 million counterfeiting operation. She thinks about how that one moment prevented more counterfeit phones from reaching consumers. She thinks about how that one moment protected people's privacy and security. Officer David Chen and Officer Rebecca Thompson continue working at Miami International. They continue inspecting cargo. They continue looking for suspicious patterns. They continue trusting their instincts. The 50,000 counterfeit iPhones are destroyed. They're taken apart. The components are recycled. The phones never reach consumers. But the impact of the case continues to ripple. Apple increases its anti-counterfeiting efforts. Retailers become more careful about the products they stock. Consumers become more aware of counterfeit products. Manufacturing facilities in China are investigated. Facilities that were supposed to be making legitimate products are found to be making counterfeit products. Regulations are strengthened. Oversight is increased. The global supply chain becomes more secure. The technology industry becomes more vigilant about counterfeiting. Officer Rebecca Thompson thinks about all of this. She thinks about the chain of events. The suspicious presentation, the careful inspection, the discovery of the counterfeit phones, the call to Apple, the FBI investigation, the international coordination, the impact. She thinks about how that one moment on a Thursday morning at Miami International, changed the course of history in a significant way, changed how the technology industry protects intellectual property, changed how consumers protect themselves from counterfeit products, changed the entire landscape of technology commerce. That's the power of customs work. That's the power of paying attention to detail. That's the power of one person noticing something wrong, calling for backup, following procedure, and changing everything. Officer Rebecca Thompson and Officer David Chen become symbols of how law enforcement protects intellectual property. They become symbols of how customs officers are the first line of defense against counterfeiting. They become symbols of how one moment, one inspection, one phone can expose a multi-billion-dollar criminal enterprise. That's the story of Miami International Airport. That's the story of what happened on a Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m. That's the story of Officer Rebecca Thompson and Officer David Chen and the 50,000 counterfeit iPhone. It's a story about vigilance. It's a story about the importance of protecting intellectual property. It's a story about how criminals are caught and how operations are dismantled. It's a story about how one moment can change everything. It's a story about the line between legitimate commerce and criminal enterprise. A line that's often thin, a line that's often blurred, a line that customs officers must navigate every single day. And it's a story about how, in the end, the truth always comes out. How fake products eventually reveal themselves as fake. How criminal operations eventually get exposed. How one moment of vigilance can protect millions of people from harm.